Welcome back to another episode of the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast. I'm here with John Cruz. He will be telling us his story about how he's overcome cerebral palsy from birth to now, a little bit about his family history and how they helped him be so supportive throughout his life and his time while being around the military. So welcome, John.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about you and how you've overcome your cerebral palsy diagnosis. So feel free to go ahead and tell us about yourself and what you've overcome.
So I was born in 1970. By today's standards, technology was far more simple. But I think I was born at the right time. My father was in the military. So because of that relationship, I was able to get what I think is possibly the best care possible at that time for somebody with cerebral palsy. I mentioned it before the start. Officially, it's diagnosed, I believe, as hypotonastic spastic diplegia. So it's all four regions, but primarily the impact is in my legs. So I have a hard time walking.
So are you fully wheelchair bound? Like you can't really move?
Nope, I'm ambulatory. Okay. And so here to state it plainly, I'm a person just like anybody else.
Exactly.
Stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. I'm married. I'm divorced. I raised 5 kids, 2 grandkids.
Wow.
And as a newly divorced or recently separated person, the scariest thing because of cerebral palsy for me is that one bad fall. I'm on my own, and while I have my kids in the area, nobody's in the house, right? So one bad fall, and who knows how it could be.
It's a lot of I'm sure it's very stressful and traumatic if you fall, especially when there's not anyone there to kind of assist you, right?
Exactly. And so I make use of a hiking stick, and that's my adaptive equipment. And here's why. And maybe this is just terminology or
hey, feel free to teach us a little bit about terminology, man. I'm all for it.
Well, see, to me, and this is just me, so I have a stigma. I don't want a walker. I don't want a cane. Those are for people with disabilities. And I have a friend who used to say this is best, one of my best friends. In fact, he's my best friend that I'm not directly related to. He used to tell me, you ain't disabled, you just fucking walk funny. And that was great. So that stuck with me to a certain degree that if my friends can accept me, and my family accepts me, that's all I need. So again, back to the terminology, I don't want a walker, I don't want a cane. What I use currently is a hiking stick. Why? Because that's not for disabled people. Everybody that goes hiking and walking in rugged terrain uses a hiking stick. So I use a freaking hiking stick. I don't have a disability. I'm not using a walker, I'm not using a cane. I have those items, even have a wheelchair. And at this point, because of my age and being on my own, I'm really considering going to get a power chair and something that will help me when I go shopping, because I'm ambulatory, as I mentioned, and I can get around, but I fatigue easily. And now that I'm in my 50s, it's not so much the activity that concerns me, it's the recovery. That is the most difficult part. So I used to be able to, as a younger person, 20s and even 30s a little bit, I can go whatever I'm gonna do, and a good night's sleep after a full day's activity would be fine. Now it's not that way. Now it's a weekend, and now it's, oh God, not only is it a weekend, I wanna take a nap. Why am I so achy? I have orthotics for my shoes, custom orthotics, and those have been a blessing.
Yeah, I wear orthotics myself, so I wear afros myself. Yeah, they're awesome.
They are. So let me ask you this. Do you have any difficulties putting on your shoes?
Oh yeah, like normal regular shoes I hit the tie, definitely difficult. They're especially since you have to find some that are very wide for the brace to fit in. And that's a challenge. That's a pain in the ass. I'm
Well,
not
so
gonna lie to you.
no, I know what it is. So I'm lucky. I use orthotics. I don't have full AFOs that come out of the shoe. They're just to assist with flat feet, obviously. Cerebral palsy, flat feet is a common aspect of it. I have that. So I have these orthotics that are custom built that stay inside my shoes. And for a long time, I used to have my ex-wife and even my daughter and my youngest son at sometimes I needed help to put on my shoes. However, within the last 3 years, and particularly because that's when my ex and I started separating or became estranged, for lack of a better way to explain it, I needed to find a way to put on my own shoes without help. And I found an adaptive pair of shoes in a camp. I was shocked. I was like, I gotta try something. And these adaptive shoes. And when I say adaptive, you can step into them, and they have this mechanism or the shoe design so that the heel will pop back up. So if you step in, you're not stepping in and getting the heel stuck. So man, that was great. And so the other adaptive device that I love my sock aid. I love my sock aid. To me, it's like a game. Put the sock on and I'm fishing. Get it down. Okay, gotta angle my foot and all that stuff. So I'm completely independent in that. Finding those adaptive shoes and having my sock aid, I'm as independent as I was in my 20s. I don't need anybody to help me get dressed. I don't need anybody to help me with shoes. I don't need anybody to help me with socks. And I'm lucky, again, as I said, I was nervous about that and I found it. So those are my favorite things. And then, as I said, with orthotics, and you said we got to find the wide shoes. Man, these shoes barely accommodate my AFOs, barely accommodate them, but I need them. And I found a way. It takes a good 2 weeks to get them fully stretched out to accommodate and be 100% functional. But without these shoes, I'd be lost.
Exactly. I can give you a suggestion as far as like shoes. Have you heard of Billy shoes? Billy footwear?
No, I haven't.
They actually make shoes that are adapted. So what the shoe is it's already tied, so you don't have to tie them. And all you have to do is there's a zipper on the side. So you have to do is open up the zipper. It'll open up the top of the shoe, put your AFO in, put your foot in, and then I have to zip it back up and your shoe's on.
I'm gonna have to take a look into those because the shoes I use now are called Kiziks. Here's the problem with them. They aren't made for people with disabilities. So it takes 2 weeks to get them to accommodate the AFO, and the way that I put them on takes that long of an adjustment period. 3 weeks later, they're worn out because of my weight, because of the way I walk. And it's not so much that the sole may be worn out, but because there's so much difference in the way I walk compared to somebody who doesn't have CP, that I just wear the structure of the shoe out. So they tend to irritate or develop my feet, develop corns and all that stuff. And it just, sometimes the shoes are achy to put on, but that's because they're already worn out because they weren't designed for somebody with a disability. But they're the most functional shoe for regaining independence. That's what it is. So the shoe you just mentioned, I'm going to take a look into those. But if I hadn't found those shoes, those Kiziks, and there's another brand that advertises as well, but the Kiziks have more of a casual dress look or casual business look. And granted, I work from home, and it's ironic. I'll get to that in my job in a minute. But yeah, I like having the opportunity to wear something that, I can wear if I want to. I can buy this pair of blue shoes. I want to get a pair of tan shoes. I can get those. Kizik has multiple colors and multiple styles. The styles that work for business casual, those are the ones that are kind of wear out quick. They have other models that are more like sneakers, and I get them, but I just don't feel like I'm working when I have them. And I actually work for the state where I live, and I work for, it's called DDD, the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So initially when I started, I was a support coordinator. So I would go out and actually do assessments for people with developmental disabilities and 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 help them get the services that they need if they were qualified under my state of residence's
So,
program list.
so kind of like voc rehab.
More focused, actually, it really is because folk rehab can be for anybody. My job when I started as a support coordinator, and that was the title, um, of working with people who either born with cerebral palsy, it's an automatic qualifier. People who are on the autism spectrum chart, if you're on that, that's a potential or at risk for it. That's an almost automatic diagnosis, and you can get in. People with epilepsy, I believe there has been language now to change that as of just this year, I think Down syndrome is also a qualifying diagnosis. So I would go in to meet my clients, and I had clients, minors, so children and their parents, and I would have adults. So I would go in and they would say they have difficulty with this. So, all right, so I can get you a service, like we have a service called rehabilitation hourly. That's where an agency comes out and not only comes out and works on a specific set of goals that are implemented through the member's particular program. And at the time, it was initially called an ISP, or individualized support program, and then it changed into a planning document. And currently, that document is called a person-centered service plan. And each one of those plans is intended to assist the member achieve the highest quality of life possible for that member. So for me, I always felt it was ironic that I, as a person with cerebral palsy, am going in to meet other people who potentially could have cerebral palsy and sometimes did have cerebral palsy, and assessing them or assessing them for services and telling their parents, based on our state guidelines, here's what you're eligible for. Based on our state guidelines, I think this is a service that would help you. We should look into this, right? And so here's the thing that I started to think about, because I was a child with cerebral palsy. I don't know that I ever properly thanked my parents. I don't know that I ever could thank my parents for what they did for me. Not many parents, and perhaps that's I'm putting my parents on a pedestal with this thought, but how many parents are going to find a way to help their child who has a developmental disability get to where he wants to go in life? And again, so I've told you my parents were children during World War II. So my mom was that typical mother. She stayed at home. In fact, she never drove. So who was driving me to weekly appointments? Who was taking me weekly therapy appointments? Who was driving me to regular doctor's appointments? Well, that was my older siblings. And they didn't have a choice, right? So they're 16, 17, whatever the age. All right, your brother has an appointment tomorrow. You got to take him because Dad has to go to work. That was a regular occurrence, right? My mom did that, would take me. And my parents made it a point to do everything they could for me. So I remember growing up, we had some property in the city where I grew up. But as I got to kindergarten age, my parents sold that house and moved almost literally across the street from the elementary school I was going to attend. And it was still something, they wouldn't let me walk to school by myself. My mom walked me to school, right? And I'm thankful for that. But I never got to really, I don't know that they'll ever understand, or that I was capable of explaining how much gratitude I have for that. And I started to think about that in my job. And I would talk to the parents and I would say, I understand what you're doing, because I've been I was a child with a disability. And I don't know that your child will ever be able to express this, because I know I don't think I expressed it to my parents, but as sincerely as I can, I thank you. Everything you're doing is for your child to help them have the greatest opportunity that they can. And I started doing that sincerely, and it was quite the reaction that I would get. It would stop parents cold, and it would take them a good 2, 3, 5 minutes to recompose themselves because they were literally break down in tears. They had never thought that they would ever be able to hear primarily their child or somebody express the gratitude for what they were doing and the struggles that it entails.
Hey, brother, sometimes it takes a whole village to get you to where you're at today. So
Yeah,
I can relate to you.
yeah,
I went through a death in early on in my family. I lost my mom.
yeah,
I was supposed to never amount to anything, and here I am today, being able to help you guys share your story. I work as a youth advocate for at-risk students at our middle schools in the
right,
community.
right.
So now it's our opportunity to make a difference, and that's what we're doing now. Speaking about you in school, how was it like for you going through school growing up? Was it
Well,
rough? Was it easy for you?
I was the youngest of 5 kids. And so my closest aged sibling, one of my next closest brother, 7 years older than me. And I remember, I always had somebody to look out for me. And as I said, I was a child of the 70s, so I was in high school in the mid 80s, right? And my brother, so I'm 16, 17, so my brother's early to mid 20s. And there was a senior attending the same school I went. And my brother came to me and said, if you ever have a problem, talk to him. I know he can handle himself. And I told him, if he doesn't watch out for you, I'm going to take care of him. And he knows that's a problem. So I always had somebody looking out for me. And so here's the thing, going through school, it was easy. I was pretty good at school. I'm fortunate, again, I was diagnosed, mild cerebral palsy. The only sort of learning impediment I ran into, I can't stand math. Give me words, give me concepts and ideas that need to be processed and contemplated and assessed. I can do that. Give me X's and Y's equal square roots of X and over the sigma of this. Oh, I'm lost. I'm lost. And
You and I
that
with
is what,
math, man. Oh
that's
man,
actually, go ahead.
I was terrible with it too. Like growing up with doing math, man,
Yeah,
forget about it.
no. Oh, so here's the thing. I tried and tried as at that initial college age to get through school. And I excelled at everything. When I say excelled, I got by. I got by at everything, but I swear to God, I couldn't get past pre-algebra. In community college at the time, junior college, couldn't get past pre-algebra. So I actually had the teacher call me and said, why do you keep taking my class? Are you in the military or something? Do you get paid to take my class and then bomb it? Oh my God, no, I
Oh,
really
wow.
just trying. But you know what? I understand his
Hmm.
frustration. He was the best math teacher. Everybody recommended him. I just had so little interest in it, I couldn't process it. So school went for me being, this is where I'm okay. I stopped it. But it was something I always wanted to do. So here's where I like to think of, Kanye West, right? And he
Yeah.
had that album, College Dropout. I beat him. I'm a grad school dropout. So I went back later in life. I got my degree in English officially in the summer of 2015. But I had enrolled simultaneously in graduate school programs, and I got right up to the final 2 classes,
Oh
which is where
no.
you do your research, and then after you do your research, you write we called it a capstone. It was a capstone in my program.
Your dissertation, right? Kind of.
More or less, it was getting to that point, but it was a master's program. So at our college, we call it a capstone. This is your
Okay.
capstone. You have your program instructor. You are going to present. You have to defend. So yes, more or less a dissertation, right? So I got to that point where I'm going to do the research, and I figured out what I'm going to write on. And dude, I think it's so great because I thought it was a great topic because it mattered to me, and I was always interested in identity in relation to society. Well, what does it mean to be disabled in society, and so on and so forth. And I started my instructors were guiding me towards, well, you have to be able to connect it to other forms of discipline, other ideas and concepts as your research foundation so that you can make those connections So I started looking at feminism as a part of the program, and then LGBTQ
Interesting.
studies. So the feminism is actually, and I used to think about it, and so I thought about this a lot. So feminism is bias in society based on gender, conflict in gender. So how do you overcome that? That's the relationship? That's the foundation for disabled studies, disabled theory. That's one foundation in my view. The other foundation is LGBTQ studies because it's conflict in self in relation to society. And so it's about choosing one's gender or acknowledging one's
Right.
personal identity, right? So, man, those are the two foundations. And I got it. I just could not find it. And then, so I dropped out. That's the short end. But what I like to say is cerebral palsy got me, and I just couldn't focus because I was in too much pain. That's part of it. But more of it was like, oh, this is hard.
Hey, on the bright side, you went further than most people would
Yes.
with
Yes.
cerebral palsy. So
Yes.
kudos to you. I never went up in my master's. I've always dabbled with going back, but
right.
Who knows? I mean, the fact that you made it this far gives me some motivation.
And I hope that helps, because look, this is something I truly believe, and it's something I used to drill into my kids. Education can only benefit the one who pursues it.
Exactly.
If you pursue it and accomplish it, great. No one can take that from you. Because, and this is something that I also feel is a filter. Education isn't a filter in, it's a filter out. And if you don't have the high school diploma, you can't apply for this job. If you don't have the college diploma, you can't apply for this job. Well, go as far as you can, because every time you go, you take away one of those barriers. And I say this, I had a friend, African-American, and we used to say this together because, again, that's cultural identity. There's a bias based on race, right? We used to say this all the time because, you know, I felt like we were the outsiders, right? We used to say, my mere presence, in my mere persistence in presence is resistance to the system. We refuse to let the system dictate to us where we can be and what we can do. I will go as far as my mind will let me and my body will accommodate. And that's what, so my mere presence is resistance, and I will resist it I will resist it all turns. Just because I'm disabled, don't expect that I'm not going to make an effort. As I said, I did everything. I've tried to do everything that I wanted in life. I wanted to be married here, and hopefully this is the key. My greatest role model, my greatest inspiration was, as a man, was my father. My greatest goal, my greatest aspiration in life was to be just like my father. And to some degree, I have. He had this disposition that you could not bring down. He was always happy, or always tried to be happy, right? That was just it. So I gladly claim that from him. But from my mother, I take the fact that I plan ahead. I have to. There's no way that I can survive as a person with cerebral palsy without planning ahead. And I tell this to my friends and anybody that listens today. For me, life is a matter of logistics. How do I get from point A to point B? Once I figure that out, I'm gone. It's over. I can do it. So that's it for me. So I did that. So life hasn't stopped me. I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I told you, one of my best friends said, "You're not disabled. You just walk funny." Well, that's my best friend because I chose to run with the crowd that accepted me. And growing up, cerebral palsy? No, I'm not a jock. Can't play sports. That ain't gonna work. Oh, you got cerebral palsy. Can't dance. That ain't gonna work. To this day, I think dancing is the best thing you can do as a young man if you want to go try to flirt with girls. Some girls love to dance, and if you can dance, you're gonna have a good time. Hey, couldn't do that. Who I hung out with, and at the time, hip hop was coming in, so I hung out with all the people that weren't jocks, preppies, or cool kids. I was hanging out with the people that were going out, writing graffiti on the wall, listening to rap music, going out, and people just You know, I don't advocate this. As an advocate for youth at risk, don't ever tell them to underage drink, but I did. Right? I'm hanging out with this crowd, and maybe that happens with everybody, but that was my crowd. My crowd, we do this. We want to low ride. We go low ride, or we do, we're gonna be around low riders. We're gonna listen to music as loud as we can listen to it in the car and just cruise. Good times for me. Learned how to just function in that way. So that's ingrained in me too, to a certain degree, that it's not so much, it's not so pronounced now, but it's always been against them because I don't trust anybody. If you're not in my circle, I can't trust you because I don't know if you're gonna, and it's simple fact, like I said, we talked about a bad fall. I don't know if all you gotta do is push me down. I might be able to defend myself, but if you get me down, it's gonna take me 3 minutes to get up. So I'm not gonna let anybody get me down. Or, so I present myself, and in my own personal ideal vision of myself, I'm not the one you want to mess with. But in the reality is, if you come and knock me over, I'm a turtle on my back. So I have to figure out, I have to present myself such that you either really like me or really don't want to mess with me. But here's the other thing that I've learned as a person with cerebral palsy. People who don't have disabilities don't see people who do. We're the people that they forget about, right? So most other identity politics have something visual or vociferous that makes others aware of. People with disabilities are often ignored. And I've proven that many a time. And again, I don't advocate for this. I have some friends, and we used to go out to lunch, and they were, oh, let's get this. Oh, man, this is a really nice cup. Oh, you want it? I'll take it. They ain't gonna say nothing. Watch me. Nobody ever pays attention to the person with disabilities because nobody wants to get called out for staring at the person with disabilities. So my friends looking, you're crazy, you ain't gonna do that. Watch me. Take a swig. I took the cup. Hey, look, I'm gonna take both of them. Said it loud as hell in front of the waiter. And we walked out. Nothing. Don't ever do that. It's wrong. It's bad. But that's just an example. People don't see us.
I mean, if I was gonna say, it was pretty much that at that time. I mean, of course, as you said, you don't condone it. It was your form of dine and dash, but it was a way for you to get attention.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I want to be your friend. You want this? I'm going to try to help you get it, right? It may not have been the best way to do things, but hey, she had 2 cups. She was like, okay, the next time we go, we need 2 more so I can have a whole set. We never went back. But that's just one of the things that I do. I carry myself. And so to really be honest, the way that I've let cerebral palsy not stop me is I haven't let it stop me.
You can't.
No, flirting with girls. Maybe I wasn't so successful all the time, but flirting with girls as a teenager. And here's what made me laugh. My parents moved from California to Arizona, 1989. I didn't come to Arizona till 99. But anyway, so this wasn't too long after they moved, so it might have been the early 90s. And I'm at a family party, and in my culture, our families get together a lot. My cousins were my best friends, right? First cousins. And I went to this family party, and you have those older uncles who just sit there and rule the roost. So I'm walking by, and they stop me, and it's funny. Hey, boy. Oh, shit, they stopped me. Yes, uncle. Hey, we just want to talk to you. Oh, shit. Okay, what is it now? And they said, I'm sitting there nervous, like, oh, God, what are they going to tell me? What I do? What I mess up now? They go, hey, man, your dad told us stories about you. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, Man, boy, with your legs, your dad didn't expect much from you. And when it comes to girls, right? I was like, what? Just thinking in my head. And then they go like this, but man, your dad was bragging. They said, man, your dad tell us you're the one he never expected to bring home girls. You brought home more girls than all your brothers put together. I was
Hey,
like, oh man. Hey. So let me tell you, it's not that there were girl friends. I had girls who were friends. So that's what it was. Maybe there was
exactly.
a girlfriend or two, but it's just the idea. My dad didn't give me the credit for, they give me credit for being sort of a Romeo, whatever you want to call it, Lothario, player, however you choose to say it. But here I am, and my uncles who are sitting here drinking beer and laughing at me because I'm sweating. They go, oh God, they're gonna give me hell. They're telling me my dad was bragging about me. So that was cool. But I was just like, oh God, I walked away, wiped my brow, said, man, I thought that was gonna be worse than it was. But that was cool. So my dad never told me that. And I know he told it to them in a humorous manner, but there's a
Yeah.
grain of truth to that, right? And my poor son, he's never gonna have a girlfriend. He's never gonna be anything. Whatever the case. I'm not saying that, man. Um, but it was my dad that he was always happy, and I'm just like him in that sense. Um, and have you had surgery for cerebral palsy?
I've had about 10 different surgeries.
Okay, you beat me. I've had 4. How old were you when you had the first surgery?
I was about 7 turning 8.
I was 3. I got you there. I was
Yeah.
3 years old at my first surgery. I've had 4 surgeries that I know of. So, and each surgery was to lengthen muscles so that they could accommodate growth, which irks me to no end because I'm like 5 foot nothing. I'm 5'4" on a good day with shoes, right? And so here's even worse. My parents, my middle name is Patrick. Love my family to death, but why the hell did my parents name me after the 2 shortest uncles in the family?
Oh
So
man.
I got the short names. I got the short uncle's names, and I got cerebral palsy. How much worse could it be, right? But see, just in making that joke, that's part of my disposition. I overcome through my words. My words are my power. My ability to communicate is my power, and that comes from being in all those damn doctor's appointments as a 7-year-old and hearing my walking pattern described as an externally rotating gait, or maybe we need to fuse his ankles so that they're more stable. But if you fuse his ankles, he's going to lose that up and down mobility. That's not good at his age. So hearing all those things, and I just wanted to be talked to, not talked at or talked about. The only way to include myself was to learn the vocabulary.
I don't know about you, but for me nowadays, I tend to take my disability and incorporate not just advocacy and motivation, but I like to sometimes when I'm around my good friends, I like to poke humor at myself. Like we'll be doing some stuff, and I'll be like, hey, I'll probably get away with it because I can walk like a penguin. I'll walk like a
Oh,
penguin, or I'll be like, hey, I can get away with this because I can do that, or I'll be like,
exactly.
hey, I'm your free parking spot.
Yeah, and I've
I'm in
done
it for the
that. So
free
here,
parking.
yep, exactly that. So my sense of humor is a little more twisted. I tell my friends, come on, man, let's go get drunk. When I'm drunk, I'll walk straight. I'll be good when I'm drunk, right? So, we go out to drink, and I have a really good friend, and I never expected anybody to know that joke outside of the people I've told it to. Well, she knew that joke. She says to me, come on, let's go drink. You probably walk straight when you drink drunk, huh? Like, what the hell? How did you know that one? And she told me my mom has cerebral palsy. And that blew me away. I was like, oh, damn. And that's how one of the things that I appreciate her friendship for is that she kind of knows what I go through because she has a mom. Her mom has the same disability. And that's cool. Not cool that she has it, but I'm a friend that I can relate to. That's the part
Yeah.
that's cool. I can relate to it. So I'm grateful for that, and I love it. But yeah, I poke humor at myself all the time in that way. But again, I got to do it in a way that not only am I poking fun at myself, but I got to be as cool as possible. Like I have to maintain my own prime ideal vision of myself. I try
No,
to anyway.
and a lot of people don't realize is um, when it comes to us having cerebral palsy, when we use humor and positivity and incorporate it in our lives, it makes things a whole lot easier. It's not that we pity ourselves, it's that we embrace who we are, you know, what we look like, what we do, um, you know, friendships that we make, we embrace all that.
Yeah, see, and we do. And so here's the other thing I joke about, and I don't know this anymore because there may be people, influencers with cerebral palsy who are less affected than I am with mine. And I like to tell them, man, I'm the flyest, fattest motherfucker you will ever meet with cerebral palsy. Nobody can keep up with me. And it's just, you know, you see exactly that. They chuckle. I said, what you chuckling at? I'm the baddest motherfucker you will ever meet. You know?
Oh man.
And that's just me. And so, see, look, like I said, I grew up in a time when hip hop was just starting, and my words are my power. I can rap. I do rap, and it's not that I'm trying to be famous, but man, when I was in my 20s, oh man, that was a dream, and I didn't know how to pursue it. I didn't know, and now there are people who can you can buy beats online, and there's recording equipment. It's fun. I actually have a bunch of beats right now that I'm waiting to record to because I have cerebral palsy and sometimes I get tired and lazy. But I've got some beats that I like and I just want to record. And again, it's not about trying to be super famous or be or achieve any particular notoriety with music, but it's something I grew up and I love. I love the words. And
Right.
I'm a tone deaf idiot. Can't sing for supper. Couldn't sing to save my life. But if you want me to write a rhyme and rhyme to a beat, I can do that. And I like doing that. Like I said, so cerebral palsy hasn't stopped me from enjoying life, right? 5 kids, grandkids, and now on my own. So I'm single again. I just wish I was 20 again, right?
Right.
And I'm fortunate. I have friends who have become like family. The hardest part of being a parent who has cerebral palsy is, and it wouldn't even have to be cerebral palsy, understanding that as young adults, my kids need to live their own lives.
Right.
And it's hard for me knowing that it was time. My youngest is 23. I think he's 23. Born in 1998, whatever that adds up to, right? He was born in 98. See, I'm old, I forget sometimes.
That's 24.
Yeah, I mean, see, and that's the other thing. He has a birthday in the same week as I do. So I have 2 sons and myself all have a birthday within the same week. So on the 24th,
Wow.
I have the 28th and the 30th all this month. So that was that little blip of time. My wife hated. My ex-wife hated. That's 3 damn parties she got to throw all at once, right? So most of the time, it wasn't necessarily my party, but it was a party for my son. You know, it was either turning 16, he's older, or the young one, whatever. But it was never really officially my party. It was always theirs, and it was, oh, it's John's birthday too, right? That kind of thing. But that is what defined me. Family defined me. So at this point, being divorced and understand and knowing and understanding that my kids need to have their own lives, that's the hardest part for me because I find, and I did that. I'm going to go back to that. I told you my greatest inspiration and greatest role model was my father. Well, I did it. My father had 5 kids, 4 boys and 1 girl. I had 4 boys and 1 girl in a little bit different order. My sister is the second oldest. My daughter, the second youngest. But I did what I wanted. My dad was my role model. I wanted to be just like him. And to be just like him meant having a family. So that was my greatest success. Having a family.
Hey, you know what, John? I gotta tell you this, man. It's man, you motivated me a whole lot. Like and you've honestly, to a lot of people in our situation, especially you've done it all. I mean, you've overcome cerebral palsy as a child. You were able to have your own family. You got married. You have kids. You've done all that, and you still have time. You still have time to accomplish things. I'm still trying to get to that point where I can finally, be with someone stable and, eventually get married and all. But that's awesome, man. That's incredible,
Thank
and I
you.
commend you for it.
Thank you. And so here, um, I will acknowledge this. I am sorely lost to this day without my family, without my wife, but understand my ex-wife, but understanding that my kids had to grow. Now, we got together, we were still very young, or younger adults. I felt that I found my match, somebody that accepted me for me despite my disability. And that worked out for the better part of 2 decades, 2.5 decades, going on, 30 years, whatever the case. But it just, at one point, it came to an end. So whatever my part is in that crumbling of the relationship, I accept it. And I regret that I lost it. But my ex-wife helped me achieve what I have, helped me finish school. She supported me through a lot. I couldn't have done it without family. That's why I said my family was my greatest success.
She gave you so many like despite the crumbling, she gave you so many blessings in the forms of kids, you getting you through school, all those things, you know?
Yes, I agree 100%. And I acknowledge that to this day. So I wish her happiness in whatever she does. There's nothing that I can take away from her. And there's no reason to have any negative feelings from all the things that
Exactly.
she brought to me. So I wish her the best. And I miss that. I really do. Because again, family was all that ever mattered to me. And I told you that story about my uncles. So we're Pacific Islanders from the island of Guam. And again, it wasn't the same uncles that did this, that told me the story about my dad. But I remember being like 8 or 10 years old and young and in awe of life, right? And I looked around and my uncle was around, and this was at a Christmas party. So we had Christmas functions where we would get together with family. So my uncle happened to be outside smoking, and I was, a little kid. Little kids just talk craziness, right? I looked around, but I was in complete awe, like just happy. This was like the comfort zone. I looked at him, I said, Uncle, you know what? When I grow up, I want to marry a Chamorro girl because I love our family and I want to carry on the way we do things, our traditions. And he looked at me and, you don't expect depth. And this is how deep it was. It struck me as an 8-year-old that this is important. He said to me, boy, because that's what older generations call the youngsters. Doesn't matter. You can be 25. If that's your uncle, they're going to call you boy. You can be 30. If that's your uncle, he's going to call you boy. But I was 8. So the time it fit. He said, boy, it doesn't matter who you marry. You carry on your traditions with your kids and you are honoring your traditions. You're carrying it on. You can fall in love with anybody you want to fall in love with. And as long as you respect your culture, carry on your traditions and do the things that you see us do, you can marry a Martian, right? And that struck me. That struck me as saying, man, that's deep. That's an uncle saying, I don't have to marry somebody that's the same nationality. I don't have to marry that. It's just up to me to carry that tradition on.
Right.
And that was deep. So that was cool. And you know what? That's the way it turned out. I've always looked, and it's hard. So I don't know if this it will be relatable, but I've always kind of, because of that insular nature of family, parents always want to protect. I was coddled, very much so. but I always wanted to get out. So I always looked externally for additional support. So I grew up, not only did I have my cousins as my best friends, but my friends that were outside the family, I looked to, my friends were all Hispanic. And the reason I say this is because in my family, everybody knows me as John John. That was the name that people called me as I was growing up. Oh, go get John John. Oh, but wait, John John can't help you because he can't walk right. John John doesn't have to do a lot of stuff, right? But as a growing up, what does a kid want to do? Kid wants to do stuff. So granted, I didn't want to do the chores because we had a big family, and when we threw family parties, we would have to, my cousins, my boy cousins, and I, and they, this was a real directive. So we had such a big family throughout Southern California. Like my dad had double-digit siblings, and there were about 6 in Southern California, 6 siblings, maybe around that number, from San Diego to LA. So when the families got together, and so we would take up parking, block full of parking. And so this was a directive I remember at one of the parties. Uncle's coming out with a trash bag. Hey, you boys, go up and down the block and check all the cars, make sure there's no trash. But don't make John John do anything. He should just stay here. And I was okay, I'll go. All right, you go, but don't do anything. Let them do everything. And my cousins would give me so much hell. You know, what do you mean don't do anything? You're gonna carry the bag. You're cursing at me and whatever, and they know you're taking, right?
Oh man.
That was just it. It was always that directive, look out for him. So I looked outside my own family because I needed to create my own definition of self. And I did that. I hung out with, as I said, that crowd that was out writing graffiti on the walls. I hung out with my friends were all Hispanic, right? They were in Southern California. The majority of my friends were Mexican. And that's just who I hung out with. And so I looked to them, and to this day, not necessarily because of them, but because I chose to try to understand, I clicked with them. So I found that self-definition outside with my friends because they let me be. Because as my friends, and I figured this out, I had to figure out how to explain it. I figured out that my friends would accept me as long as I kept my word. It's hey, come over. You gonna come over? What time are you gonna be here? I kept my word. That's all that matters. Hey, we're gonna go do this. Can you make it? Yeah, I'll be there. Hey, we need help. We need a ride, and it's not necessarily a ride, but hey, we're gonna go, and we need, can you help us? As long, and that's what I was. My friends to this day, as long as you're loyal, that's all that matters. So I found that ability to define myself outside of my family because my family already defined me. That's John John with cerebral palsy. That's Uncle Leon's son. That's Auntie Kita's son. That's the one that has a disability. Right?
It's powerful, brother. It's real powerful.
Yeah. So I found that. So I found that outside the family with my friends who were Mexican. When I met my ex-wife, she's Samoan. And I fell into accepting that culture, and it is a beautiful culture. And I've told you I love language and I love words. And if you've ever heard someone speak Samoan or even Tongan or other Polynesian languages, man, to me it's the most lyrical language you can hear. It is beautiful in its truest form, right? I can hear it, and like I said, I love words, so I hear language. And again, you don't ever want to have anybody be mad and yell at you, let alone in Samoan or Tongan or whatever. But still, in the natural course of conversation, I used to love listening to my wife speak when she would speak to other family members, her side, that would speak Samoan. And I just think it's a beautiful language. I do. So I found I was able to define myself not only with my friends, but with my ex-wife, because again, that's another place. What matters? Keep your word. I kept my word as much as possible. And I even raised my sons to do that. I raised my sons, if you tell somebody you're going to do it, you do it. You break your back, and I didn't say back, before you break your word. That's all that matters. You keep your word, period. You know, if you, and I, that, now here's the caveat. If you aren't breaking the law, hurting yourself or somebody else, you break your back before you break your word. That's what I used to teach my sons, because that's what I learned. You learn to be loyal, you learn to keep your word, and people will trust you. And that's the most important thing you can have in this life, is people who trust you, because if they trust you, they will help you.
Exactly.
If you need it. So I've done a lot. I'm fortunate to have done a lot. And if you ever want to have a conversation with me, be honest, because I can dog walk somebody when it comes to talking. We can talk all day, and you tell me what you want to talk about, and I'll find a way to talk about it. But do you have any specific questions, man? I feel like I've gone on about myself.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay, man. I've actually had I've had a blast with you. Like, you've been a breath of fresh air. Like, you have this upbeat personality, and like we can relate to a lot about a lot of things. And I've learned some stuff about you and about myself. And I would like to know, have you ever thought about writing a book?
Man, I love writing. Here's the thing. I'm also aware of this because of college. The self-doubt that people have in general as they grow older and learning to trust themselves, it's taken me even longer to trust myself with that, because I always have that self-doubt. Is it going to be good enough? I don't know if they'll accept me because of cerebral palsy. And that's my own hang-up. As good as I am, and here, I'm going to tell you, this is what I tell people all the time about myself. And you can call it bravado, call it whatever. I tell people, when you meet me, you will never fucking forget me, because I'm unfucking forgettable, period. I say that, and I say it with my chest, and I mean it. But when it comes to putting my own thoughts down and trusting myself, I'm good. You hear me speak, and I think in my conversation with you today, I've demonstrated my ability to use words. So verbally, solid. In written form, even better, because I can take my time and I can edit. But do I trust myself to do that? So that's the hardest part. I kind of had this conversation with a friend of mine last night. And I said, she sent me this thing on TikTok about 3 things to learn. And I forget what they were, but there was one thing that was forgotten. The only other, besides those 3 things, the hardest thing anybody can learn to accept, and I'm a prime example of it, is learning to accept themselves. Like, I know I'm good at a lot of stuff. I know I'm good at words. There isn't anybody short of my rhetoric English teacher in grad school. I have only ever met less than 5 people who have intimidated me verbally. I can speak with anybody. I can speak at the most academic level, and I can speak at the lowest, most gutter level. And in my life, I have only met at most 4 people who have intimidated verbally. And one of them was my most favorite professor at ASU. And to this day, I count her as somebody that I would never want to argue with. But I count her also as providing me the greatest insight into learning how to use words and how to convey an idea. And that's something that I enjoy, because I want to be challenged. So it wasn't only that particular professor. She's one of my favorites. And maybe if I chosen her as my program instructor when I was doing my master's, maybe I would have finished, right? But I didn't. I went with somebody else. And that one was a great professor too, but the other one was just so inspiring to me. So she intimidated me. And not only did she intimidate me, but there was another English professor who was actually I think like a vice president at the time of the school. And I'll give them both credit. Marlene Trump is an excellent professor. She intimidated the hell out of me. I had one class with her. She was the one that was like um, administration level beyond being a teacher. The other professor is Sharon Kirsch. She is an absolutely awesome professor. Any class that an English major could take with her would be so beneficial. And she was awesome. And you've heard me, I'm not afraid to speak. So I went in one day and we were talking about stuff, and I lightly challenged her. And she said, "You wouldn't stand a chance." And I said, "Well, I would fall on my sword for the class." And she laughed. "Yeah, you'd be falling real quick." Something to that effect. But yeah, I knew, in any kind of debate, I wouldn't have stood a chance. But I liked her, and I admire her. So she's my favorite professor ever. There's another professor I had at community college here, Professor Philip Roderick. He was also what's the word? He was essential to me going as far as I did. In fact, he and I became friends for a period, and I can tell you, I almost had a job lined up with him at an English department. All I needed to do was finish my master's, because he was going to be in a different, his position was changing, and we'd already discussed it to a certain degree that, man, I would love to teach. And in fact, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach because I like talking, and that's 30 people that got to listen to me what the hell I got to say. So I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. But then I started thinking about it after that. I was like, man, I kind of dodged a bullet, because even if that's at most 30 kids, 30 students, and I'm teaching 3 classes, that's 100 freaking pages. I got to read every 6 months, every semester, and that's just one paper, right? Because at the community college level, we were writing 3 to 7 page papers at most, and maybe two papers per semester. That's a lot of freaking reading. I'm glad I would have loved to teach, because I generally have a passion for English. But I'm glad I didn't, because that's a lot of work on my part. I forgot that it's not just me writing and telling stuff. Oh, damn, now I got to grade the papers. so that's one, silver lining, so to speak, right? I don't have to worry about grading papers. But I would love to write a book. I just haven't trusted myself to do so. I told you, and I'm not kidding. I'm unfucking forgettable. Unfucking forgettable. And I have tons of stories. And I keep thinking to myself, man, I just figured out what makes writing good. And I really did. This is what I think to myself. So that's my ego saying, I know what makes writing, or I think I know what makes writing enduring. It's always a question of self-accepting X, whether X is self or X is society. There's always a conflict between self and something. And resolution always winds up being self-accepting whatever needs to be accepted. That's what makes writing key. And if you can tell a story where that happens and it can connect with people, that makes something that will last forever.
Oh, brother, I definitely I appreciate you and all knowledge you've given us today here on the show. I'd love to have you on again for another episode to kind of venture more into your stories and have people learn more about you. So I definitely appreciate you being on, brother.
No worries. I was glad to help. Hopefully, I gave you something you could use rather than just rambling on. But I do love to ramble.
Oh no, man! I've had people ramble on and on and on, and I still use it because there's always something that somebody might learn.
Oh damn! You just said I rambled. That hurts.
Oh no! Everybody rambles. You know. Yeah. Everybody rambles. I've rambled. You know. That's what makes it better. You know, the more, like they say, the more the merrier.
Right. You know? Exactly. So yeah. And feel free to invite anytime. Again, now we're gonna go back to technology and moving me on. I don't know podcasts. So wherever you publish this, let me know, and I'll be happy to check it out. Send me a link, and I'll be happy to put it on Instagram, my Instagram, on my Facebook. Not that I have many people, but I'll share it. I'm happy to share it. I just, like I said, family's everything. Hopefully, they're not embarrassed that I was over here talking all kinds of craziness, telling people. Why are you telling people you're unfucking forgettable? Because I fucking am.
I mean, I mean, to me, that's a real powerful statement in terms of, like, that's how it should be. Everything you've accomplished, everything you've overcome is a way of saying you won't be able to forget me because I've accomplished all of this.
Yes.
Yes. You've created a path, a legacy that people are going to go back and look at and say, we can't forget John. We can't forget John.
So.
He's a family man. He works with the disability community. He doesn't let cerebral palsy define himself. He's also a college graduate. He also finished college. He made it very far in the graduate school, and that's something a lot of people can't say.
Right. So thank you. I appreciate that. But yes, it was a pleasure to meet you. As I said, I'm not familiar with podcasts or how they're distributed or where they're consumed, but let me know, and I'll be happy to put it out there, and I'll be happy to see people. And so here, I'll be the one to keep repeating it. I'll watch it over and over again because, like, damn, I didn't say that right. Oh, I could have said that better. I'll be critiquing myself.
Oh yeah, it happens, man. I've gone through it myself with whether it's through what I do with my students or through my workouts, when I try and stay fit, all that kinds of stuff. So yeah. Man.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. The next time we'll talk, I'll tell you about my barbecue because I'm gonna tell the truth and shame the devil. I'm fucking good at it.
Definitely, man. Yeah, you can find this episode on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, every other podcasting outlet out there.
All right.
Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel to consider for updates. And thank you guys for watching. And until next time.
Yes, it was a pleasure. You have a good day.
Definitely. You too, man.
Thank you.